Hi, this is Dennis Dempsey. You are listening to the Faith in Humanity podcast. Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Faith in Humanity podcast. This is part one of a two-part series featuring Guido, an atheist from Argentina. Guido is a student at the university in Buenos Aires, but he's also a professor at that university teaching history and philosophy. Now, the last episode that I released, episode 12, part 2, featuring Lee and Kathy Baker, I first of all, I want to recommend going back and listening to that episode, because that episode really changed my mind in the way that I perceived Christianity, which I thought was kind of impossible since I grew up in such a devout family. But they totally revolutionized the way that I view Christianity, and also just exposed me to knowledge that I had no idea even existed, or at least a school of thought that I had no idea existed. So I really want to recommend that you go back and listen to it. But that episode was almost 2 hours long, and I heard back from a lot of you saying that it's really fantastic, they got a lot out of it, that you guys got a lot out of it, but it was so long and there was so much to digest that some of you were saying it was, you had to listen to it a few times, or you missed some things, especially when I had personal discussions with some of you, that there were some things that you missed because there was just so much, and it was just such a long podcast. And I understand that, so I try to keep these podcasts to around an hour. A little bit below an hour would be preferable. So I decided to split this discussion up into two parts. Each part's going to probably be just around 40 minutes long. I think that's digestible enough because this conversation is really fantastic. And just even our dynamic. Sometimes I'll talk to people, and for the most part, I don't know any of these people before having the interview. So I connect better with some, and I don't connect so well with others. Guido, we just hit it off. We became really good friends right away, which is just fantastic. And I think that makes for a more enjoyable discussion on your end. And it benefits me just because I have a new friend now. So this episode is going to sound more like just two buddies getting a drink together and just having a discussion, which is something that I definitely prefer. So with Guido, I want to make sure that you got as much out of it as you can, because I really think that what he has to say is really fantastic. So I made sure to split it up just so you all don't miss anything. With me personally, after an hour or so of listening to, especially when it's just two people talking back and forth, my mind starts to wander. So I understand, and I want to make sure that there's nothing lost on the listener. I do a lot of my recordings. I do a couple of recordings a week or something like that, and a lot of them get put on the shelf, and then I release them in the order in which I did them. And sometimes I've recorded an interview months ago and I'm just getting to release it now, and this is the case with Guido. I recorded this interview back in September, middle of September. So we get into politics and we talk about Trump, and I make some reference to some numbers about some of his false claims. That was from the inauguration to the middle of September. So those numbers definitely have changed since I've recorded this interview. So just be aware of that before you all start emailing me that I'm making false claims and I'm not getting my facts right. Just be aware that it was recorded quite a while ago. Lastly, I just want to give everyone a heads up that there is cursing in this episode. So if you have some little kids around, you may want to save this episode for when they go to sleep or when you have a little bit more private time. All right, let's get into it. Hope you enjoyed the discussion. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. It's really kind. It's kind of a big deal to just ask a random person to divulge kind of personal information about them to some random person. I understand that it's kind of a big deal, but the whole idea of the podcast is to get this kind of mosaic of just random people, opinions about spirituality from all over the world and everything. That's kind of the whole concept. But I understand. It's
I like it. I like the proposal, that it was fantastic. And I'm quite a random person, so this was Bring it on.
It works out.
Yeah, I think we have to share knowledge. So I think this is the purpose of the podcast, right? Like to share knowledge,
exactly.
to share points of view, and it's amazing, really, really. I really like your idea on the podcast.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Cool. Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of times, especially, at least in America, I find this extremely common. And actually, I was just reading an article this morning in this magazine called The Atlantic, and it was all about the rise of this kind of fake news and why in America, opposed to other developed nations, why we tend to have this idea of whatever subjective reality that we want is just as equal as anybody else's. And this kind of idea that like any form of science or anything or any empirical facts or objective reality is thrown out the window based off of my subjective understanding of the world.
Well, actually, yesterday I had actually not yesterday. It was on Friday. I had a lesson with my students about relativism and how we believe every opinion is valid and everything. Everybody can say whatever they want without consequences, and I think that's a problem. Yeah, that's a problem because there's some social problem. A woman was killed by a man. And everybody is talking on the TV about that. Like everyone is a specialist on gender, culture. Yeah. And maybe they're not. Maybe they are just dancers. They have a TV show about clothes. And why don't you call a historian, a sociologist, anthropologist?
Yeah. It's like everybody's opinion is valid, and I totally agree with you. It's like if you have, and this is one of the beautiful things about technology is that I can communicate with you, which previously I'd never known, like there would be no way for me to communicate with you, especially in real time like this. So there's beauty to that too, but then it also gives a mouthpiece now to like any crazy person that wants to be able to vocalize their opinions, and then they're able to coalesce and create their own echo chambers, which is really interesting. Because if you think about it, I think I may have said this before, we are social primates. We want to be in community, but we also want order. So we want to be in a community of people that think similar to us. And also just in America, just how we have this idea of individualism in America, especially it was kind of like this founding principle, like you can be a self-made person. You can be to hell with science, to hell with the experts. Individual freedom, individual liberty, and that's a really dangerous situation. And we're seeing that in Donald Trump. Now, is Donald Trump completely evil? Is he totally terrible? Every single thing should be complained about him? No, like you were saying, he's not completely horrible. But he also, I think. The article said that out of all the claims that he's had over 1,000 false or misleading claims since taking the office of the presidency. He's averaged like 4.5 false claims a day. I mean, that is just astronomical, and it's incredible. I think I agree with you, and I think these are the pros and cons of globalization. This is it. This is it. We can do whatever we want. We can do this Skype. We can talk to everybody. But at the same time, we receive a lot of information from everywhere, and we can't process it. We have to, we take everything we read as valid, as granted, and that's a problem. Yeah, absolutely. And so kind of going a little back, my original point was kind of this individualism, and the whole point of the podcast is because I'm someone that wants to say, and I think it might have been Dostoevsky, the Russian author. I think he said, I'm gonna probably misquote it, but he said only a fool says he knows everything, and I kind of want, or a smart man will say I don't know something at least like once a month or something like that, and I agree with that. So like I feel like where I'm at is I just want to talk to people, listen, and I don't want to I want to say I don't know. I don't know what Islam believes or what a person in England that's a Muslim, what they follow. I want to hear from them. I don't want to have this projection of what's said or what an atheist thinks or whatever. Because there's these ideas of atheism and everything, that, especially in America, which we are like a Christian-dominated country. It's almost like to the point.
Well, we have our own stereotypes on American culture. We have in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, which is a really cosmopolitan city. We have our thoughts, and then I talked to you and I said, okay, this is fucked up because I'm talking to a really lectured person who can have a conversation with me and he's open-minded. So the stereotypes clearly breaks because it's not like for everybody.
Yeah, to be fair, I mean, where I live in the United States, in the southeast, in Atlanta, Atlanta's very good. Like, big cities, you're fine. Once you get out of it, forget it. The stereotypes that you probably guys have is like exactly like just like people like in like motor scooters around Walmart and like fast food, like that stuff that exists. That exists. Like,
neo-Nazis everywhere. Yeah,
I mean it does. I mean,
Confederates.
It's incredible. It's incredible the arguments that I have to have with people about. I feel to be basic fundamental parts of American history and even world history, which is crazy because in America we're so idealistic as a country as a whole that it's almost history should be done through like a European perspective and not necessarily through like world perspective. You know, it's like it's very bizarre in America. It's
bizarre.
It's anyway.
But I let me tell you, I agree with your dividing, I don't know, the urban places and the field places, you know, urban, like city, whole city, and you go to the country or the field, I don't know how you say in English, and it's different,
Oh,
Here's the same. Buenos Aires is a thing, and you go to the north of the country, and it's different because they tend to be more conservative. I think that's kind of a worldwide thing, I think.
Yeah, it's pretty much everywhere, So... No, sorry. What were you gonna say? You can say.
No. Just a disclaimer of my English. I apologize because
you got amazing English. Forget it.
No. I think it's easier to write because I take my time. But when I have to talk about these specific things, political, religious, it's really hard. For I guess I have to find the specific words and so it might take a time. So I apologize in advance.
No, you're all good.
Do you talk in this kind of English with everybody, like around, you know, with parents or friends, or are you trying to speak like in a sort of neutral English? Just for me to know, like I'm curious.
No, I talk like this with friends, family, everything. Yeah.
Really?
I'm like
it's quite clear, quite like in the movies, you know, it's like
okay, good.
It's solid.
I mean, I may change some words. Like I feel like, oh man, this word may be a little bit too complex. I'll try to choose a simpler word that maybe someone that isn't as well versed in English will understand. English is a hell of a language, man. English is really not an easy language. Like, I've taken Spanish and I've tried to learn Spanish. I mean, I paid for programs. I did the whole thing, and that's actually how I got into Interpals in the first place. I really wanted to learn Spanish. Like, I wanted to get Spanish. I don't know.
And did you?
No, I'm not good at it. I'm not good. Like, I'm terrible. And I took it in school. I don't know. It's just language. I mean, please don't apologize. I can barely speak Spanish.
That's okay. So. I have a political situation I had the other day. Well, everything is political, but I was in a historian congress about it was about the Byzantine period, you know, the late antiquity. Well, that's my specialization in history, and it was here in Buenos Aires, in my university actually. And some people from Europe came, like from Belgium, from Germany, England, I think. And when I was about to give my lecture, my paper, I thought on the inside, should I tell in English, in Spanish? And I was like, hell, wait, no, I'm in Argentina. I speak Spanish. So I think they should adjust their heads to my language. And I discussed it with some fellows, Argentinian people there in the Congress, and they said something like, that's our colonial mentality. Like, we have to adjust to the powers of Europe or even America, and say, it's true. I mean, if I'm in England, I should speak in English, but they are here, so they should try to understand Spanish.
Yeah. I take it for granted that, see, the thing is I didn't need to learn another language. Was every place, for the most part, if I need to communicate, English. I don't need
English,
to learn it. You know, it's kind of, I heard this joke, someone, what language do they speak in heaven? And they speak English, because Americans are too lazy to learn any other language. and it's like,
That's true, it's true.
It's like, I just take it for granted. I just figure that when I travel abroad, someone will speak English somewhere. Like, it's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
Like,
and it's true, and it's true, and it's true. They will know some words in English.
Yeah.
They will. I went to Italy I went to Italy a few years ago, and actually Italian is more similar to Spanish than English. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I was like determined to speak in English. I remember my sister said, "Why don't you speak in Spanish? They will understand you." No, I have to speak in English because that's the international language.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like, I think, I forget who it was, but someone was telling me that, I think it was in Italy, where they were going on a tour, and the tour guide, like, people were from all different places around the world, but the tour guide spoke in English to everyone. It was, that's just what we're going to use, the universe, it's incredible, and I guess because we've been such a superpower in the world, or it's actually because of it's because of colonialism. It's because England spread out so much and like the taking over and everything, and then you have some pockets of French and obviously Spanish because the Spaniards in South America and everything. But yeah, for the most part, it was England that took over the world and everything. So anyway, wait, 2 more questions for you before asking you a serious question. What's your tattoo?
Here, this is Celtic mythology.
Hold on.
It's
oh nice.
Yeah, this is sort of a ball. This is a ball. Then you have a tree here.
Nice.
And this should be, I don't know how to share it. This is like the sun.
Yeah.
And
dude, I like the color. I like the black and white with just a little bit of color. I like that a lot.
Yeah, that was on purpose, so the bull would notice.
Yeah,
it's Celtic mythology. I've been into Celtic since I don't know. I was a teenager, and I went to two, and we discussed. This is actually found in Paris. This is like this huge stone of a bull with 3 birds and a tree. And yeah, there's some mythological shit I won't display here, don't worry. But yeah, because people get bored when I start to talk about this.
No, you're good. I love learning about stuff. So it's Celtic mythology. So what drew you to that? Why were you so interested in?
Because that was one of my first steps into stepping away from Christianity, actually.
Okay, cool. So maybe share that later. And then the second question for you is you play bass, right?
Yeah, I play bass.
Dude,
it's
awesome.
actually
Oh, nice.
Since I was 14.
I got my bass in. My bass is just an Ibanez, but I play.
Oh.
But anyway, dude. Okay. So let's get a little base of your life. Just kind of give me the bullet notes of your life, or maybe because I know. Okay. This may be naive American mindset, but I feel like a lot of South America is Catholic, right? So did you grow up Catholic? You grew up Catholic?
Yeah, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. I was raised in a Catholic family. My parents are Catholic, but they were always open-minded. I think here in Buenos Aires, everybody is just Catholic. Like for default, like nobody really cares. We are just Catholic because we were raised, but it's part of a daily life. We don't go to Sunday church every Sunday and that stuff. We are just like nominal Catholics, you know what I mean? Like we are not super fanatics or that stuff, which is, I don't know, you ask a Catholic here and say, oh yeah, I believe in Christ, and they move along. They don't get involved into that,
So like Catholicism in Argentina is kind of like, or maybe Catholicism in all of South America is kind of like what Judaism is in Israel. It's just kind of the standard in a way, and it's kind of like
standard. It's standard. It will be like the right word. Yeah, I wouldn't try to generalize with Latin America or South America because some other countries can be more hard on the beliefs. But here in Argentina, or even here in Buenos Aires, which is the capital of the country, we are just standard Catholics,
Yeah.
Okay.
And so obviously Catholicism has a lot of conservative views and everything, especially on maybe same-sex marriage or abortion or things like that. Do you feel like that bleeds into the society of Argentina, or do you find that Argentina is a little bit more progressive? Or maybe in academia, which you work in academia, they may be more forward-thinking, but...
Yeah. I think we are more progressive. That's why many people say, "Oh yeah, I'm a Christian, but I don't believe in the church." Or, "Yeah, I believe in Christ, I believe in the church, but I don't think the Vatican is right." So I think people here are more progressive, more open-minded that the whole idea of the Vatican or the Catholic Church. But as you know, or you may have heard, the new Pope is Argentinian. That was like a big shock for us. Well, the last times he spoke publicly, he tried to show like more humanitarian approach. I don't know. Like he said, "Oh, if two men want to marry, well, they can go crazy and do whatever they want." Oh, he said that. Actually, it's on the internet, and people was like, "Whoa!" Like he's so progressive, which is. Well, I don't believe he's progressive, but it certainly helps, like the LGBTQ community, for example. It certainly, because there are many Catholics who are gays or lesbian or whatever.
I wonder. Yeah, sometimes I wonder if he's becoming more progressive so that he doesn't lose followers or something. Which they could like if the world starts trending in a certain direction. And the Catholic Church will just end up becoming irrelevant at some point, right? So I wonder if that's.
I agree. I agree. Well, from 19th century and to today, we have like some secularization of society because of science. So certainly, the Church is losing followers or believers. So I think what the Pope is doing right now is trying to update to the society itself. So he's not being progressive. He's just trying to understand how society works.
Yeah.
That will be. I think that's.
Okay, so obviously, I mean, you're an atheist.
Yep.
So this question will lead into another question. Are you an anti-theist? Are you against religion, or are you just an atheist?
No, I'm an atheist. But I do believe that religion nowadays serves a higher purpose, which is reproduce the capitalist system. So I don't think believing in a God is wrong, but if you believe in a God in this kind of society, you start to forget about the actually social problems. What Marx said, like the religion is the opium of the masses. He wasn't saying, "Oh, I'm against religion." He was just trying to understand that religion nowadays serves a purpose, which is avoiding people to understand what's happening with them. So if you're exploited by your boss, it's because God wants it. That's the answer. That's what Marx was against, and what I'm against. So I don't hate religion. When I was a teenager, I actually did because I was a teenager. But nowadays,
You played in a rock? Did you play in a rock band when you were a teenager?
Yeah, a folk metal band actually.
Okay, yeah. So you definitely hated religion. So folk metal.
Yeah. I really was. And when I joined my history degree. I started to study religion. I study societies who believed in different religious systems, and I say, okay, the problem is not religion. The problem is man. The problem is society itself.
Society corrupting religion.
Yeah. Well, I do believe that we create gods. We create the religious beliefs. But the belief system, as I said, reproduces different kinds of exploitation in society. Like, for example, the capitalist system. Like the capitalist system uses religion as a purpose.
As a purpose to oppress the masses, is what you're saying.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So they use this as a tool for negativity, but you're saying that it could be used as a tool for positivity.
I think
at an individual basis, on an individual level.
Yeah, I agree with this sort of religion should be private. Yeah, I think it should be like, if you want to believe in a God, it's your problem. Mm-hmm. But when your God tells me that you are over me, well, that's a problem, and we are gonna have a problem.
You're like, we're gonna have. I played in a folk metal band. You don't want to mess with me. We're gonna have a problem.
Exactly. Yeah. I follow your questions. The ones you sent me. I remember the first one, like how was my environment. So I wanted to tell you how this atheist side of me started. I don't know if
of course. Yeah. I was gonna get to that. I was just gonna ask just one more follow-up question, and then totally we're gonna get into that. Because like obviously, so you're not an anti-theist, but like you obviously have a scientific mind and everything. So do you think that religion and science can coexist in the world, or do you think that they?
Yeah, I do. Actually, I have some Christian friends who are historians as me, and they have a critical perspective of, or for example, we often debate about historical Jesus. Did he exist? What did he do? And that stuff. And we them and me, we all try to get the good part. For example, the examples of Jesus. Like what the Bible said, the message itself. Mm-hmm. So we don't care if Jesus, turned the water into wine, or he, walked in the water. That's not important, because that's part of the faith. That's not of my business. But the message, for example, it was cool. It was revolutionary. It was subversive to the Jewish and Roman law.
Okay, so sorry, I interrupted. I just wanted to cover that one point. But yeah, so you can go into a little bit about your story. That's
Yeah. Well, as I said, my parents are Catholic. They raised me Catholic, but at the same time they raised me critical. Like, you have to ask everything. Why. So I remember I was 12. This story starts when I was 12. Mm-hmm. I was really young, and I spotted on the TV a clip of Marilyn Manson.
Mm. Yeah.
And I saw it, and I was like, whoa, this guy is amazing. He's dressed all in black, and he has a pale skin, and he's screaming. Mm-hmm. I was like, whoa. So of course, I went to Google, and I started to say, well, who's Marilyn Manson? Mm. And when you Google Marilyn Manson, you start to notice some keywords like Satanism, Catholic Church is bullshit, and blah, 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 blah. So my first approach to stepping away from Christianity will be Satanism. Satanism, like the movement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm somewhat familiar. You want to just tell me what to you Satanism is?
Yeah, it's an American philosophical movement which started, I don't know, in 1970, 1980, with Anton LaVey, and he wasn't like claiming Satan was a god or anything. He claimed individualism. So the Satanist church claims individuality, like liberalism. Gotcha. But stepping away from Christ and that stuff. Mm-hmm. So I was 12, 13, 14. I was like, I'm a Satanist. I want to be against everybody, against my parents. Mm-hmm. But the paradox here is like my parents were always supporting me. Like, oh, you don't want to believe in Christ? That's awesome. It's like, no, you have to hate me. You have to be worried about me. But
you picked the one way that like kids rebel against their parents. No, you did folk metal, and then you became a Satanist. I mean, like, oh my goodness. And they're just like, yeah, sure, whatever. Wow.
Yeah. They were worried about me, I don't know, dressing in black and that stuff, because I was into that style when I was a teenager. Mm-hmm. But they weren't really worried about if I believe or not in Christ or in religion. No, they weren't. They just were way worried about my health about my sanity, you know.
Yeah.
But, so has been always been supporting my house. I was a rebel with no cause.
All right.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, so then after Satanism, obviously, although I feel like Satanism, now I don't know the exact like core beliefs, but it sounds to me that Satanism sounds like a form of atheism. If you think it's an individualistic kind of like you are the god of your own world kind of thing. So to me, that kind of sounds like atheism in a way, you know.
Yeah, but with no, I don't know, critical perspective on society. It's actually kind of selfish, Satanism, because you forget about society. You forget about everything. You just care about your own ass.
Yeah.
And well, when I was a teenager, it was okay with that. It was fine.
Mm-hmm.
But nowadays, I don't support that because selfishness that doesn't lead anywhere. But for me, at least.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, I would say it's sort of an atheism, like a liberal atheism.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so then when did you, or how did you say, okay, atheism, I mean, Satanism, not for me, atheism for me, or was that just kind of like, all right, I'm out of my teenage years, this is kind of stupid, I learned more, and I'm just, you know, more mature, you know, in my thinking now?
Sorry. Hello?
Yeah, hey, you're still there. You got it?
Yeah, I don't know, my computer froze, like, I don't know what happened.
Oh,
so,
yeah,
sorry, I was waiting. Yeah, you told me.
Oh, sorry. I was just asking when you transitioned from Satanism to atheism, and I was asking if it was like your transition from out of Satanism to atheism, was it just kind of like a growing up kind of thing? I was a Satanist to kind of rebel and kind of was cool when I was in, you know, a teenager. Now I'm kind of like, I got more, you know, my education, you know, I went into academia, and now, like, I have a fuller understanding of the world.
I think, it was progressive, that's definitely right. But in the middle, I discovered this sort of neo-paganism related to Celtic culture. Actually, nowadays, in Europe and in America, there's like a revival of pagan traditions from the Celtic culture, Nordic culture, even Latin American culture, like Inks or Mayans or Aztecs. You know, this kind. So I think everybody's trying to reach some sort of faith which are not Catholicism or not Christianity. I think people are kind of getting tired of it, and I was and I am on that aspect, of course. So when I was like a late teenager, like 17, 18, I embraced or tried to approach my faith towards some sort of connection with nature, this new age stuff, which is really popular here, not here, but like worldwide.
Oh yeah.
Everybody's like, we have to save the planet. We have to, I don't know, embrace Mother Nature. And, so I followed that and like this polytheism.
Yeah.
And then I realized it's the same. It's the same as Christianity, but with many gods. So yeah. So I stepped away from that too, and I finally led to atheism, like now. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So okay.
Really?
What?
Are you following? Because maybe my English is messy.
No.
And
yeah.
And I wanted to be clear.
Yeah. So you left the kind of the new agey kind of idea for atheism just because you found just more critical thinking and more understanding with atheism. Okay, that's good. I just wanted to kind of clarify that. But okay, so something that fascinates me, and I sent this obviously as part of the questions, but something that interests me is Hobbes and Rousseau's their view of humanity. So like Hobbes obviously was pretty negative that we're all like pretty evil at our base, and I guess that's demonstrated in like Lord of the Flies or something, where like society like reins us in, and honestly like I kind of side with that. I really truly believe that we left to our own volition will choose bad decisions. Not every time, not if you get a choice every time you're going to choose a bad decision, but like I think that a lot of times when people are unchecked, they'll resort to doing negative things, and I think that could be a potential problem with capitalism or something. You know, when it's like these big businesses are allowed to kind of do what they want. Well, guess what? They screw the environment. They screw the worker. They screw these. You know, they do these terrible things because they're left to do what they want, and it's run by people. You know. And then obviously Rousseau has a theory that, you know, we're all at the base, we're good, and society corrupts us, right? And I feel like religion, at least Christianity, comes in the mindset of Hobbes, has to, because what would be the point of Jesus if we were all good? But no, it's original sin, we're all evil, so we need Jesus, and like that's where I feel like religion comes from. But as an atheist, like what do you see? Do you see us as ultimately good creatures or ultimately bad, or a mixture? We could be a mix, you know. I'm sure that's probably more realistically what we are. I will follow sort of empirical way, which is we are not nor evil nor good. Mm-hmm. We are not born. We are just born humans. We are animals who try to survive in this hostile environment. I wouldn't agree with neither Hobbes or Rousseau. Well, I told you, I teach philosophy in school, and we have these debates with Rousseau, with John Locke, with Hobbes, and my students always start to debate, is man evil, is man good? And well, I always try to give a different perspective, like try not to think as man or evil or good, because if you think mankind is evil, well, we are doomed. And if we are good, well, we don't have anything more to do. So I think we are just creatures made of consequence of their own environment. So I will be like in the middle. We are not good, not bad. Okay. That's not fun. That's not fun. I was being in the middle is not fun. Black and white thinking is the fun part of it. You gotta think in extremities and black and white thinking, right?
Well, If you push me with the gun and say choose Hobbes or Rousseau, I would say Hobbes. Yeah, okay. I would say Hobbes.
There we go.
But you have a gun in my head, so it doesn't count.
All right, so like, do you? Yeah, sorry. Finish your thought.
No. I kept thinking about it. I think humanity is hostile, but because we are hostile with each other, because we have to be competitive. I don't know. You just get me thinking in my head, because if I have to choose Hobbes, I just have to justify why. Anyway.
Yeah, because I feel like if all of society, if everything collapsed, if you think about it, it's kind of insane, because the idea of, just like think about the idea of currency. We have these things that are worth really nothing, and they only have value because we place value on them, right? That's the only thing. They're not back, and even gold and silver, it's just because we place value on these things. If everybody realized this and it all collapsed tomorrow, I really feel like we would resort to animalistic tendencies of me surviving over me and maybe my family. I'd save my cats too. I'd keep my cats, but like I don't know, to hell with everybody else. But like,
I think will be sort of The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead chapter. It will be like that, but I think because that's not because we are evil or wrong inside. It's just because we were raised in an environment that made us be competitive with each other. So of course we were raised all our life to be first, to win the first prize, to be So of course the world collapses and we are going to save our own asses. It's understandable. It's understandable. Yeah. So I will agree with you. But just because we are raised here in this shitty society.
So do you believe in universal morality? Do you believe that, and on top of that, where do you get your code of ethics? Because a lot of people derive their code of ethics from some religious text. And just universal morality, I mean, just things that are acceptable in certain countries would never be acceptable in another country. Like, so do you think that there is some universal code that we live by, I mean, obviously every animal, I believe, is sentient, but higher, intelligent, kind of philosophical, like self-aware. You know what I mean? Like separate.
Yeah.
Like obviously we're animals, but we're humans also.
Yeah.
We have a little bit of a different plane than the other animals in the animal kingdom.
That was a hard question.
I know.
So,
these are like not easily. These are not like you just go on and figure out an answer. I mean, these are debated for hundreds of years. I mean, this is not like I can't imagine that we're gonna figure it out right now. But
yeah. Well, I think each society has their own moral code. Each society has a different one. That's why we all the time are debating with Islamic countries, like why do they behave like that and we don't, and that stuff. So if I had to think of one principle which should be moral, like in universal perspective, should be let's don't kill each other. I'm not thinking about love. I don't agree with that. I think the only one moral aspect we should everyone embrace is let's not kill each other. Let's try to survive this shitty world we have to live in, because there's no God, there's nothing after this. So yeah, we have to living in a community. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if I replied to your question.
No.
Or you want to make a comment?
No, you're fine. So your code of ethics is pretty much derived from just like, it's almost a humanist kind of standpoint. You're kind of this idea like for the greater for humanity as a whole, let's make this as manageable as possible. Was I stand on that? I stand on your side too. I think humanity, and I think on a global scale as well. Like I think environment, even like animal species and everything, I believe that we should be protecting them. I mean, I'm a vegetarian because of that. Like I don't think of killing any animal. You know, I should be protecting the place that we got for the better benefit of us and like, you know, future generations and everything.
When you say humanist, I will agree with that. Like, I'm tired of individuality. I'm tired of let's save our own asses. So I think we should start to think more in a more worldwide thing, or just checking around your neighbor. No, maybe we think about, I don't know, saving the kids of Africa, and we forget the kids around our street. That's another problem. That's made of globalization as well. But going back to the words, humanist will be like a right way to put it. Let's not think only about ourselves, but as a whole community, and try to save everyone, each other. You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was listening to a very interesting. It was another podcast. It was on the Atlantic. It was the Atlantic Radio. It was done by the magazine The Atlantic, and they were saying that with this, at least here in America, this idea of like you're special, everybody's special, this kind of like promotion of who's special and everything. It's this the one of the benefits from doing that is this individualistic ideas suddenly paint. There's a problem with that, but there's also good because they take people groups and instead of looking them as a whole, which would be a cause of racism, you're able to look at them more as individuals, which is a little bit better now, and kind of like, does that make sense? Is that like a? It
makes sense, but well, I'm not also an atheist, but I'm also an existentialist. I don't believe we're really special.
Okay, yeah, I can dig that, and I agree with you. I don't think that anybody's some special snowflakes. I think that like we need to be on the same level. The person that makes $1 billion, whatever that amount is. I mean, what, do you just die in your money? That's like something that I don't understand. It's like you're gonna amass amounts, these crazy amounts of wealth, and then what are you gonna do? You're just gonna die in it, like get buried with it, like the pharaohs or whatever. I don't know. I don't understand it. But yeah, I feel like our purposes, and I think like what you're saying, kind of like your purpose coming out here. And we'll get a little bit into. I think there may be a little bit of a question of that. Like one of your purposes is that it's like. my job here is to try and progress humanity to a better place, or try to get it moving, or try to, even if I'm just moving it an inch, that's kind of like what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. I think you just quoted me. Yeah, I agree. I think well, I really follow Albert Camus in this. Like, life has really no meaning beyond. We create our meanings, and I think one of the only honorable meanings of life should be coexist and try to make it here the best we can, and that involves ending exploitation, ending inequality. So yeah.
Alright, that's going to do it for part 1. Be sure to subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss part 2. You can find us on Facebook at the Faith in Humanity Podcast. You can also find us on YouTube under the same name, the Faith in Humanity Podcast. You can also find us on Twitter at TFIH_podcast. I highly recommend that you go like those pages and follow us on Twitter, because I post some special quotes that I pulled out of the conversations that I think are important to highlight. I also post some pretty interesting news articles, in my opinion anyway. And you can also email us at tfih.podcast@gmail.com. And if you have a second of your time, please go and rate us on iTunes, Google, or Stitcher, wherever you get your podcasts, because that will help other people find our podcast. All right, until next time, stay safe and peace be with you.